In the tense, paranoid dawn of the Cold War, one American aerospace company wielded more sheer destructive power than any other entity on Earth. They built the monstrous B-36 Peacemaker, a global bomber with a wingspan wider than the entire distance of the Wright brothers' first flight. They engineered America's very first intercontinental ballistic missile, the Atlas, which would later launch John Glenn into orbit. They designed supersonic delta-wing interceptors that shattered world records. That company was Convair, the Consolidated Vultee Aircraft Corporation. Backed by the immense financial muscle of General Dynamics, Convair seemed completely invincible. Yet, by the early 1960s, this military giant suffered the single largest corporate financial loss in American history up to that time. They lost over $400 million on a single, disastrous commercial project, the Convair 880 and 990 jetliners. How did the undisputed king of military aviation lose everything, trying to build a passenger plane for billionaire Howard Hughes? This is the story of the rise and the catastrophic fall of Convair. The DNA of Convair was forged in the unforgiving fires of military necessity. In 1923, Major Reuben Fleet founded Consolidated Aircraft in Buffalo, New York, quickly establishing a reputation for building virtually indestructible flying boats. By 1943, at the height of World War II, Consolidated merged with Vultee Aircraft to form Consolidated Vultee, popularly known to the world as Convair. During the war, Convair became an industrial miracle. They produced more than 10,000 PBY Catalina seaplanes, tireless machines that hunted enemy submarines across the Atlantic and rescued thousands of downed pilots in the Pacific. Even more impressive was the B-24 Liberator. Convair churned out over 18,000 of these heavy bombers, making it the most produced American military aircraft in history. At their massive plant in Fort Worth, Texas, a brand new 4-engine bomber rolled off the assembly line every 63 minutes. When victory arrived in 1945, Convair was not just an aircraft manufacturer, they were the very backbone of American strategic air power. As the Cold War intensified, the newly formed Strategic Air Command demanded an aircraft capable of carrying atomic weapons from bases in North America all the way to targets deep inside the Soviet Union, without ever needing to refuel. Convair answered with the B-36 Peacemaker. Powered by 6 massive Pratt & Whitney radial engines and 4 General Electric turbojets, the crew proudly referred to its power setup as 6 turning and 4 burning. It was an aluminum Leviathan, a deterrent force that kept Soviet aggression at bay for nearly a decade. In 1953, the industrial conglomerate General Dynamics acquired Convair, providing them with virtually limitless financial resources. Convair's engineers were fearless pioneers. They mastered the radical delta wing design, producing the supersonic F-102 Delta Dagger and the Mach 2 F-106 Delta Dart. They pushed the boundaries even further with the B-58 Hustler, the world's first operational Mach 2 supersonic nuclear bomber. Convair felt absolutely untouchable. But as Boeing proudly announced the 707 and Douglas prepared the DC-8, Convair's leadership made a fateful, hubristic decision. They wanted to conquer the commercial jet age. By 1956, Boeing and Douglas were already taking hundreds of orders for their large, long-range transcontinental jetliners. Convair quickly realized they were too late to compete directly on size, so they decided to carve out an elite, high-speed luxury niche. They would build the fastest commercial airliner in the world, a medium-range jet that could cruise at 615 miles per hour, beating the Boeing 707 by 30 miles per hour. They named it the Convair 880, representing its astonishing speed of 880 feet per second. Enter Howard Hughes, the famously eccentric billionaire and owner of Trans World Airlines, or TWA. Hughes was obsessed with speed and luxury. He promised Convair that TWA would purchase a massive fleet of 30 aircraft if Convair customized the 880 to his exact, demanding specifications. Convair made a critical, amateur mistake. They agreed to Howard Hughes's demands without securing a binding, non-cancelable financing agreement. To satisfy Hughes, Convair designed the fuselage narrower than the Boeing 707, offering luxurious 5 abreast seating instead of the standard 6. They installed 4 smokeless civilian adaptations of the military J-79 turbojet. It was an engineering triumph of sheer speed, but financially, it was an economic death sentence. By the time the Convair 880 made its maiden flight in 1959, the commercial airline market had shifted dramatically. Airlines did not care about shaving 15 minutes off a flight between Chicago and New York. They cared about seat mile costs. Because the 880 was narrower, it carried only 80 to 110 passengers, compared to over 160 in a Boeing 707. The 880 burned fuel at a ferocious rate, making it wildly unprofitable for mainstream airlines to operate. Then came the ultimate betrayal. Howard Hughes suffered a severe cash flow crisis and could not secure the bank loans required to take delivery of his finished TWA planes. Dozens of brand-new Convair 880s sat rotting on the tarmac at San Diego, painted in brilliant TWA livery, while Convair burned through millions of dollars in unpaid inventory. In a desperate panic, Convair tried to fix the problem by stretching the plane, adding innovative aft fan engines and aerodynamic anti-shock bodies on the wings. This became the Convair 990 Coronado, but the 990 failed to meet its promised speed guarantees, causing launch customer American Airlines to slash its order. Between 1956 and 1962, Convair built just 65 880s and 37 990s. The project collapsed under an astounding $425 million in write-offs, equivalent to over $4 billion today. It was the worst financial bloodbath in corporate history up to that time. The catastrophe of the Jetliner program shattered Convair forever. A furious board of directors at General Dynamics stripped the division of its autonomy and swore never to build a commercial passenger plane again. For the next 3 decades, Convair was relegated to building subassemblies, producing fuselage sections for the McDonnell Douglas DC-10 and building space hardware. They still retained brilliant engineers who developed the legendary Tomahawk cruise missile and the Centaur upper stage rocket. But the soul of the company was truly broken. In 1994, General Dynamics decided to exit the aircraft manufacturing business entirely. They sold the Fort Worth plant to Lockheed, where the F-16 and F-35 would be built, and sold the Space Systems division to Martin Marietta. In 1996, the historic Convair division in San Diego was formally shut down, its famous factories demolished and replaced with commercial office parks. Today, few remember the name Convair, yet their fingerprints remain all over the modern world. The Atlas rockets they pioneered launched humanity to the stars. The Delta Wing technology they perfected lives on in modern aerospace combat. And the most famous Convair 880 ever built still stands preserved at Graceland, the custom private jet of the king of rock and roll, Elvis Presley. Convair's tragedy was not a failure of engineering, it was a failure of commercial discipline. They built the fastest, most beautiful jetliner in the sky for a billionaire customer who could not pay, while ignoring the cold, ruthless economics of airline profitability. They mastered the skies of war, but in the unforgiving arena of commercial flight, speed alone was not enough to outrun financial ruin.